This is December 24th, 2009, and this is an interview between Cydra and Gregson. Okay. Actually, I think I've got like about 5 or 6 hours worth on here, so we can go.
And I'll pick it up from here. It doesn't need to be
Yeah.
backwards. Okay.
We'll pick up everything in the room.
All right. Well, you be the interviewer, and I'll be the interviewer.
Actually, there's no interview. What did you want to talk about? You said you want to talk about things that you want to tell Kevin.
Yeah. I think I'll just start off with his birth story, which was a nice one. And Kevin, I just remember the morning, June 14th, 1998, and I was out in the backyard, and it was this beautiful sunny day, and I had my blue silky on. And my,
I just one thing I want to say. Probably best if you talk to me and not to him. And the
Okay.
reason I say that is it makes it more immediate because then you're not having to picture somebody in your head. You're seeing me.
So I had my blue silky on,
Uh-huh.
and there was this plate of watermelon, and I started getting those contractions, just little contractions that were kind of painful, And I just didn't think it was time yet. So I was walking off the contractions out in the sunny backyard, and it was really nice. And Carl had gone off to work to, he's just very responsible, and, we just didn't want to jump the gun. So he went off to work, and they just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I finally knew my water had broke because I went to the bathroom, and there was just a little bit of water in my underwear. And sometimes when people's water breaks, it's just this geyser, just of water everywhere, and just a little bit, like 2 teaspoons had come out. But I called the doctors, and I went down, and they tested it, and they said, yep, your water's broken. But Kevin, your head was so plump, and you dropped so low, the water couldn't come out. You were kind of like the plug down there. So, I just remember everything. I remember the chair that I was sitting in when they tested the fluid, and it just feels so, it was such a special memory. It's all locked in my head. And, I can see the hospital bed where I was there and the nurses. And Carl and I had taken these classes, and we wanted to do the Lamaze. So I brought all these properties with me, all of these comforting things. There were some Charms lollipops to calm me down, and I brought a vanilla scented candle, and I had planned to walk around, and kind of help with the contractions. But they put me on Pitocin, which is a drug that really speeds up the labor. So the contractions were really painful, and they were just, you'd kind of have a contraction, and normally you get to rest a little bit, and then you get another contraction, but these ones were right on top of each other. And Daddy had been called, and he was down at the hospital. And so I couldn't, they kind of just had me strapped in the bed. They were monitoring my oxygen and monitoring me. And so this went on for a long time. And I remember the doctor, I was really thirsty, and he came in to see me. And I said to the nurse, I said, could you ask him, could I have a little Sprite? And she walked over to the doctor. It was sort of like this huge powwow. Like, would I be allowed to have this beverage? And I was really thirsty. And she looked at him, and she said she'd like a Sprite. And he looked over at me with this very serious look, sort of like the judge. And he said, yes, she may have some. I was like, oh, thank you, sir. Oh, thank you, doctor. Thank you kindly. Please, I will worship at your altar. So I got a little bit of Sprite. And, it was just kind of like it was just all pretty boring. It was painful. But then the contractions got really painful, just like really bad. So we called in for an epidural, which is this plug they put in your back, and it takes all the pain away. And when that man arrived, I almost fell on my knees just kissing his feet. He was like Santa Claus
Better living through chemistry.
Better living through chemistry. Yes, absolutely.
Suddenly the sunlight turned back on. Everything was good again.
Oh, everything was good again. So he put this needle or something, and you've got to sit up and you're all comfortable, and they're like, don't move at all. I'm like, oh, you're trying not to move with these contractions, and they got me hooked up, and that just took so much of the pain away. I felt fine. And so it's just the kind of the whole thing went on forever. And then you started getting into the deep, heavy contractions where I was really in a lot of pain. And like I said, I brought all these things from the Lamaze class to calm me. And there were breathing exercises and a scented candle to sniff and relax. And none of that. I didn't use any of it.
No.
Instead, Daddy, who had a beard at the time, would have these delicious scent pockets of Daddy's smells in his beard, in his skin furs, in his beard furs. So poor Daddy had to stand over the bed kind of in an L shape with his beard on my nose so I could just sniff his beard. And that calmed me right
Cydra,
down.
you are so atavistic.
I know I am. Yes,
Cave woman Cydra.
Yes, cave woman Cydra, that's right. Must smell scent of male of clan. Where is he? I must smell him. Grunt, grunt. Oh. So Carl had to stand there for a long time while I sniffed him. And then these nurses came in. They were like the cheerleading nurses. They were amazing. And I'd be ready in a contraction and they'd be, okay, push. And I probably pushed for, I can't remember, it was either 2 hours or 4 hours, but it felt more like 4, but I don't remember how long. So I pushed.
The funny thing is I think this has all changed because I don't think they tell people to push anymore, because what they say is that people know how to push. What they say is your body's just like the smartest thing around.
Wow.
Nobody's telling you how to push whenever you have a BM. You just know
No,
what to do.
you know what to do. No one tells you how to drink the water. Hold the cup up and gulp. Yes. So at one point, I just didn't have a shred of clothing on, and I'm kind of up on this ball on the bed and using the bar and, trying to get gravity to help. And Kevin, finally it was time, and you came out, and all that fluid, what's that, the amniotic fluid?
Amniotic fluid, yeah.
All the amniotic fluid that had been there went geysering into the air in this large fountain. It's just like went, like the fountains down at Bessemer Court, which was sort of like, your personality. You were arriving on the scene with great drama. So, and that, Kevin, that...
Great drama might be your personality, too.
Yeah. I have no idea what you're talking about, Festive. Perhaps not.
She's here in, her Indian clothing.
Yes, I am. I'm rather colorful
She's wearing saffron and purple.
Yes, I am.
Looking like a bonbon.
Yes, with nice big dangly earrings. I've got my nice big earrings with red fake plastic gems on them, which I love so much. So, Daddy, it was like, I think it was like, oh, I don't know, 1 a.m, or it was late, and we wheeled you back to the room, and it was just a magical time, Kevin. There you were, our new little baby, and it was just really wonderful. But they didn't have any food. There was no food to eat. At that point, I wanted a steak, and there were some crackers with peanut butter or something, which I ate. It was a real disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always thinking about food, That was the sad part. So, and I remember someone came in the next day to photograph Carl, and poor Daddy hadn't slept in forever. And he just had this huge grin just slapped on his face, and his eyes were wide open, like he was trying to keep his eyes wide open.
Oh, the grin's completely forced. I've seen that picture.
The forced grin with the huge wide eyes. I mean, he just looks...
He looks like a nutcase.
He does. He looks like a nutcase. It's a man who has no idea how his life is going to be changed forever.
Well, I think just going on complete exhaustion.
Oh, yeah. He was totally past himself, and they made him sleep in these, god awful little hospital chairs. I mean, they're sort of like these faux recliners that are really uncomfortable. So that's it. That was it on the birth story, Kevin. But I like to think about the day you were born. I think about it from time to time, and it's just, Kevin, it's sort of like my life was divided into 2 portions. Before having you and after having you, and it was really magical.
Oh, I'll just back you up on that one as a father. I mean, that is probably the single biggest distinction in your life. There's these major milestones. Puberty is one. There's before puberty where you're a child, and then there's after puberty where you're an adult, and then there's before children and after children.
It is so true.
And I would actually say that's the real growing up.
It is the real growing up. It really is.
Puberty is just sort of your body grows up, but having kids is when your soul grows up.
There you go. Yeah. And I think I look back on it so fondly, Kevin, because you have been profoundly the thing in the world that has brought me the most happiness. You really have been. You know, I think about if I had one last day to, you know, like right now, you know, I've got the liver problems, and I don't want to be off looking at the museum, seeing my favorite works of art, and I just want to look at you, you know. The best time of the day is when you come banging down the stairs at full speed and leaping around, hanging on the rail, and then I have to make you do it all over again, and you come down and tell me stories, and it's just really, yeah, it's good.
Well, you're talking about Kevin. What's something that you think about when you think of Kevin that makes you happy? I mean, you know, what about him is good?
The number one thing about Kevin that I just is so important to me is how much joy he has.
Mm-hmm.
He's just, you know, we call you Joy Boy. You know, you just kind of, you dance around the house, you skip, you leap, you climb stuff, and you just have a lot of enthusiasm, and it's very contagious. And I think even especially lately I've been enjoying it more because my energy's so low, and I just love to see you bounding about, enjoying life.
What kind of things does he like?
Well, you know, Kevin, you and I share the same sense of humor. You've just got that silly, wacky, far side sense of humor, and you know, it's just fun to watch you laugh. Right now you're into a lot of fart jokes, which, as Daddy and I always say, those fart jokes never grow old. It's the kind of humor that can carry you into your old age.
The well is deep.
Yes, the well is deep. Tons of material there. Tons of material. You know, you enjoy a lot of things. You enjoy reading, which brings me a lot of pleasure. I'm really glad that you have that, because, you know, I know reading was a struggle for you in about the third grade, and now that he can read, you just enjoy that, and I like seeing you do that, and I'm really grateful. You have a nice balance of things, which is nice. You're a really balanced kid. You know, you like to play outside, digging your slug hole in the backyard and burning little bonfires. I always like to brag to the other mothers that, oh yes, Kevin likes to burn little fires in the backyard, and some of them look rather aghast. But, you know. So, you know, and then you've been buckling down to your homework, and you can do that, and you bring joy with that. And one thing that makes me really happy, Kevin, about you right now that you're enjoying are your friends. And Kevin's got these great friends like Jonick and EJ and Pete from church, and I think some of the happiest times here at home when you've got a buddy over at the house, and I may be at my computer working or in my art nook, and just listening to the background noise of you and your friends just kind of running around laughing and, you know, being silly or having conversations. It's just very enjoyable to listen to. It's just this it makes me feel really safe, and I just gather a lot of joy from watching you have joy in your life. It's yeah, I like that a lot.
What are the kinds of things that he likes to do? Makes him happy.
Well, you know, it's funny, Kevin. I honestly think nature plays this huge trick on you, or this kind. I do not understand it, but I'm so totally convinced that whatever your kid gets excited in and interested in,
mm-hmm.
suddenly you're interested in it. And you know, things that, you know, you're enjoying sports so much. Kevin, I love watching you play baseball up at Letterman Field. And you know, he's up there playing, and he's so focused. You know, he gets in that catcher's outfit, and I love seeing you be a catcher, Kevin, because it's this, like, you own that position. And we had the photographs this last year from the team. You know, everybody's in their uniforms, but Kevin's down there. He's in his element. He's in his element. He's where he should be. And it's wonderful to see, and you're so good at it, Kevin. And you know, you get in that box, and it's game face on. You know, you don't look at what you're doing. You're totally focused in on the game, and you take so much pride in it. He counts how many balls he's caught and how many balls he's missed, and you know, and you've just got a good. I am so proud, Kevin, how you get along well with other kids so easily. You know, I'll get calls from your teachers about, well, you know, he missed this homework and didn't do that and didn't do this, but I have never ever gotten a call home about Kevin not getting along with his peers. And I think it's just a relief to me that he just fits in so well in so many different situations. And I just have this great pride to see Kevin and Yehuda as the battery. You know, Yehuda's the pitcher, and he lived next door, and you two practice together. You go to the games together, and you know, it's just very satisfying.
Why is it important to you that he gets along with people like that? I mean, do you consider that to be an important skill in life?
I always believe the two most important classes you'll go to school at the two most important ones are recess and lunchroom time. They just are, you know. You can be really, really smart and you can know a lot of stuff, but if your people's skills are low, people just don't want to have you around. And, you know, Kevin's the kind of kid people want to be around him. He's, you know, and you're not a doormat either. You're sticking up for yourself more and more if kids are being rude. You know, Dad is giving you some good verbal punning skills to kind of, you know, zing them back and just shut them up. I know it's going to make your life easier, and I just like having your friends around too. You know, I feel really grateful and really proud of you for your relationships.
This is getting back a little bit to the past, but you were talking about how Kevin has these activities that he takes on, and you become interested in them. I remember one in particular, which I'm sure you remember too, is he got into the Revolutionary War. And none of us could care less about the Revolutionary War before. I had known nothing about it. You know, we used to talk about it in school, and I wasn't paying attention. None of us were paying attention. And so Kevin got into the Revolutionary War, and we were all into it. And we all started learning the names of the generals, and we all started learning about the battles.
Yeah.
And I remember you were majorly into it, too. And it was just, and none of us minded, too. We loved it. We thought it was great.
Oh, yeah.
I went out and bought a DVD of the Revolutionary War.
Yeah. It's stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's sort of, it's very weird when that happens. And I enjoy when you share your books with me. You know, every once in a while, Kevin will bring home, you know, you're smart. He'll bring home these books and he'll be like, Mom, this book is so good. You've got to read this book. And I'll sit down on the couch and, I'll be blubbering and laughing and crying and enjoying these books so much. So,
Well, now you talked about these great things about him. Does he do anything that drives you crazy? Anything that you just
oh my God,
irritates you to no end?
Oh, Kevin, absolutely. You know, and I know part of it, Kevin, is it's truly your personality type. Just as people are either introverted or extroverted, and you really can't change that. You're just kind of one or the other, or you're a judgment or a perceptive type, meaning the clock is kind of like you get your deadlines in and you pay attention to the clock and you're on time, or time is just kind of a loose, amorphous thing, and time is very loose for you. You are unable to rush. So I can't say, Kevin hates when I say this, I say work smart, you know, like just get it done. Move in, do some things, he's unable to do that. And later on, Kevin, that will be a good thing. You have an astronomically, phenomenally large respect for detail. Detail is what he's in. So if I say, you know, get this picture done, it needs to be the cover jacket for Mrs. Lockney, you know, you can't whip it off in 5 minutes, and it's an hour-long project. And it's hard because I feel like I'm trying to move you along to the next activity. Like, okay, we got to go to baseball, we got to go to family choir, and that's hard. And you know, Kevin, I don't know, maybe it's on your chromosome or something, but you can't pick up after yourself right now. And you know, we've tried to. This is another word he's going to hate: the visual sweep. I say, okay, now Kevin, when you're done in the dining room, stand at the door and give it a visual sweep, and see what's you know, what you need to put away. And you know, it just nothing works. You know, I've tried finding you 50 cents for. Actually, I got the shoes to work. He's leaving his shoes right when you would walk in the door. You would trip over his shoes that blended into the carpet, and I started charging you $1 every time you left them there. And that one you stopped doing that one pretty fast, although it started up again. So now that I've been reminded, I'm gonna have to do that one again. And it's a good thing, Kevin. You know, you're really hot. You know, you'll just kind of run around the house and climb the walls. And sometimes I want you to be sitting through a meal, and it's very hard for you to sit. So.
Pretty standard for an 11-year-old
Yeah, it's standard.
boy.
This is normal stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not about, you know, it just drives me crazy. Other mothers could care less. Other mothers love living in abject squalor in their homes. You know?
Well, you like your space to look nice.
I like order, beauty, and symmetry. Very much.
Not everybody that's important.
It is
to you,
critical.
aesthetics are important.
No, it's not. I can't think if things are messy. If things are messy in the house, I can't. And Mom's the same way too. I can't concentrate. If the room has to be really quiet and ordered, and then I can sit and think. Otherwise, I'm so visual. I get very distracted by things. Yeah. What else that you do drives me crazy?
That's probably good enough. We don't need
Yeah,
to go into
that's
really
good
great
enough.
detail.
No.
Just curious. You know me, Mr. Balance.
Yeah. You gotta have some balance in there.
Well, I'm curious. You've actually alluded to this already, but let's just go a little bit further into what do you consider to be the most important thing in life? When someone looks at their life, what is the most important thing to focus on? What's?
Geez, Gregson, we might as well be asking who God is.
That was next.
Oh gosh,
It's not as deep a question as you might think.
Yeah, I think it's about balance. I think it's about having a lot of things in your life. I think it's about things like making sure you have a duty to yourself and you're taking care of yourself, and making sure you're taking that care and moving it out into the wider community where there's a sense of not living in the world alone but giving back, and kind of being part of a world village where you know you're connected to other people. And it's just important to have. There are certain things like sleep. Sleep's really important to me. That's sort of a foundation of what I run on.
It's funny. I've said the exact same thing. I've said that's the start of your whole day.
I mean, it's like the dumbest thing. Like, what's important to you in life? Well, sleeping. But
not
it really
at all.
is.
I say the exact same thing.
No, and I think Dad's got that sleep disorder, and we really know what it's like not to have sleep. So, and then just the kind of the gamut of things like, are you having enough fun in your life? And I struggle with that. Sometimes I just get very, sucked into work and sucked into this, and and I just kind of have to stop and go. You need to be kind of playing a little bit more, having a little bit more fun.
You need to do it for the people around you too, because if you become all work, everybody suffers.
The witch bitch, the royal witch bitch. We know nothing about that. The demanding one, yeah.
I'm going.
So it's things like that, and then there's bigger things which are really important. I would honestly have to say, probably the biggest one, and it scares me because I think some people literally are not wired for it, is compassion, where you really have a sense of what someone else is going through on a profound level. And I see people in the world who either tend to be very compassionate, but then you have a lot of people who they're not able to step outside of themselves, and that scares me a lot. I think that's why we have a lot of the problems that we have in the world today, is that lack of being able to, well, gosh, how would I feel if my village had been bombed? Before you go off and bomb somebody else's village. Yeah.
Well, you said something interesting, and actually I think you keep touching back upon it. I don't remember exactly what your wording was, but I think the word community was coming to my mind. You were talking about giving back to the community.
Yeah.
How do you feel that you've given to the community?
That's a rough one for me, and I think it's hard because I think there have been large times in my life where I haven't given anything or I couldn't give it all.
Well, I would disagree with you, but
this is what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking about how a few years ago I was at church and I organized the alternative gift market, and we brought in $8,000 that year for the alternative gift market, and then I'd also organized care packages to be sent over to when we went to war in Iraq. Care packages that went over, and they were these big 5-gallon buckets, and they had all these supplies like towels and toothpaste, and I think we sent 250 of those things over. Wow. And I organized the people in our church to do that. And I felt good about it. I really did. But I realized also I wasn't really giving out of the place that's so important to me. And my art is much more important to me. And I was kind of done with those two experiences. And I thought, there are people who don't make art and can do this, but making art, it feels so darn selfish to me.
Mm-hmm.
Making art, but
because you put so much of yourself into it.
I make it for me. It's my story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not. No one is getting fed because I make art. The world is not cleaner and greener because I make art.
You're pushing my buttons right here because I can't stand when people make that argument, because that's what I've always, for me, I'm going to jump in here for a second because you pushed one of my buttons. For me, the space program is very important. Going out into space is very important. And the argument people always say is, well, there's so much here to do on Earth. You know, we've got hungry people on Earth. And what I always say is, look, there was a time when we lived in a few valleys. I mean, humanity. You know, we were these cave people living in valleys, and people could have said, why do we need to go to the next valley? There's so much to do here. I mean, there's people to be fed here. Why do we need to go elsewhere? Why do we need to make art? I mean, you know, why do we put that effort into art? You know, humanity is more than just being fed. Humanity is art. Humanity is literature.
You know, it
humanity
really
is
is.
poetry.
It really
and
is.
if we don't have art, poetry, and literature, we are nothing. We are just robots.
And I had to come to terms with that because, you know, anytime you go to a foreign country, the first thing you want to do is you want to check out, you want to see the museums, you want to see the opera houses, you want to see the culture. And people really respond deeply to that. So I kind of really had to come to terms with that and say, this is going to be my gift. And I don't think many people are going to get it, but the ones that do get it, the people that I've talked to who have been moved by my art have been profoundly moved. You know, really deeply inspired, and I feel like my art is very unique. I feel like I'm saying things no one else is saying, in a way no one else is saying them. I see a lot of repetitive art there out these days, where people that are going to art school and they're copying off their professors. I see a lot of that, and I'm very proud of the art I make, and I've had to I was able to set that aside and say, this is going to be my gift. I'm not going to do these other things. The one thing I do give to the church, which I know is a really big gift, it's huge, is being on the Sunday Celebrations Committee, where I get to get up and read the poems that are read in church and lead people, and I am able to.
Well, you're a trained reader. I
am a trained reader, and I'm really good. I'm really good at reading those. You know, when I read, those words come to life for people in a way that it didn't before, and people are very moved, and people request me to be their Sunday Celebrations person, and so I've let that be.
Well, you had years of training as an actor, and so you know how
I know
to
what
read
to
with
do.
feeling,
I
and you
really
know how
do.
to put life into it.
Yeah, I do, and I do it very well. I'm extremely competent, and I also feel it's really important to have females, women at the front of the church as leaders. So every time David Herndon's up there, I'm glad that there's a female presence up there balancing that out. Devin's up there too, but I think it's important. I always feel like I'm kind of inspiring the younger girls in our congregation to do things like that too. So Sunday Celebrations it's been really important.
Let's get back to your art, because you said that you feel this is one of your big gifts to the world, and you said it's saying something. What is your art saying?
Well, on the fundamental basis, just starting kind of on the low of Maslow's laws, I think it's well executed in that it follows good aesthetics, a good composition. There's a lot of detail in it. I see a lot of sloppy work where people are putting maybe 4 or 5 hours into something and selling it for astronomical prices. And it's been really important to me. What I define an artist is someone who, not everybody can do it. Not everybody can do it, and you're not going to get it in the first week or the first month. But I think I've gotten better over the years. I've been sculpting now for over 10 years, and I sculpt much better than I did from day one. And I have a skill craft, and that's important to have that not everyone can do it. And I take pride in that, and I also know I'm really not finished. You know, I've had so many other things in my life that have taken up. I haven't been able to develop my art as much as I'd like to. But I'm very much okay with that, because I'm grateful that there's that balance in my life between my art, between my work, between my family. And I'm okay with that now. What was start the question over again?
What is your art saying? What What is it telling people?
This has been hard for me too, and I've really, the main principle of my art has been that it has to be utopian.
Mm-hmm.
And there has to be an order about it, a symmetry, and beauty.
So it's telling people about a better world. That's
Exactly.
What I take what you mean by utopian.
Because sometimes pieces of art will enter into my head, and I've thought about, showing someone in anguish or showing that pain, laying that pain out. And I thought, I need to know that there's a solution to that pain. I need to know that there's an answer to that pain. So I've tried to make my art be the solution, the answer to the pain.
Is it both the pain and the solution? In other words, does it show the cloud and the silver lining? Is that what you're saying?
I really...
Because, you do not have Disney art. I mean, your art is not about cherubs dancing.
No, it's not sentimental. It's not overly sentimental at
Mm-hmm.
all. It's very serious.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a way in which I think, like poetry and prose, I think my art is lifted up out of the realm of prose into a poetry because it's more stylized and more symmetrical.
Let me try this. In one sentence, what is your art telling people?
It's telling my life story.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want it to do that. I didn't want it to do it that much. I thought it was more important earlier on to have art that was more universal.
Mm-hmm.
And the last two pieces of art that I have made are simply about my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, so it's very much just really about me. And I'm kind of okay with that.
I think that's the advice to good writers, is write about what you know.
Well, I write about what I know, but some of them end up being more autobiographical than I'd like. So you can have authors,
You look at some of the great authors and they basically were writing autobiographies thinly veiled as fiction, and they were great works of art.
Yeah, it's true. So, the art thing has been a huge struggle for me. It really has, because, I basically went part-time and didn't take a full-time art position so that I would have more time to be with Calvin and raise him and be there for him, but also then to be able to spend more time with my art. And I've realized I've lost thousands upon, $10,000 plus more dollars into these few chunks of clay downstairs in the living room. And I've had to just let that be okay. That's hard for me. I kind of struggle with that. I sometimes look, but I'm okay with it. I am okay with it. But that's a conversation that happens. This conversation, it's what brings meaning to life, It's kind of like, you either get my art or you don't. I'm always afraid when I pass away, it'll sort of get moved down to the basement and then slowly out to the garage, and, in another 100 years it'll sort of, or quicker, be in the landfill. And
Mm-hmm.
all artists talk about that. All of them struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
And, Duncan, my clay teacher, just said, you're just moving. You know what it comes down to? It's lives don't. Life does. And so
Continue.
that's it. It's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Life doesn't. No. Lives, individual single lives, don't always get the task accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
But working within the life force of all the artists in the world, I think slowly we're carrying that on.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've done a lot of philosophical thinking about fairly different topics than what you're bringing up, and I've come to the exact same conclusion.
Yeah. And, it's not my business, the outcome. That's not my business. I have no control over that.
Mm-hmm.
And the little control that I've had, I've taken it. I've tried to market my stuff. I've sent out CDs. I've put a website on, about once every 3 years I do these major mailings to I've entered blah, blah, blah. I've really tried to put it out there as much as I can, but I just need to make it I just, it's like going up to somebody and you speak your piece, you say your lecture, and it's out of your control. And what happens with it, that's kind of the universe's, you know, you do everything you can, but you don't know where it's going. And it's really scary. I am so grateful and so proud of myself, profoundly, that I've let myself make art, because it has been such a struggle. You know, not a lot of people want to buy it, and frankly, right now, I don't want to sell to individuals. I don't. My goal right now is to be able to bequeath it to, like now, the Museum for Women in Art. You know, I'd like to keep the collection together, and it's not about that. It's about having it be seen and having it be together as a body of work. Because I don't think any one piece is going to tell the story. It's really a unified whole that really kind of moves through it.
Let me ask this question again. I said in one sentence, it's all right, you are answering the question, but I want to have something clarified here. I said in one sentence, what is your art saying? You said it's telling my life story. Okay. What does that mean? What is your life story? What well, and maybe you can't say it, and I mean in just in little bits and pieces. Tell me what's actually, your art saying? What's the life story? Yeah,
because it really is not telling my life story. My life story would include Kevin and Carl and everybody and this and that. It's
each piece of art is telling a different facet. I said, of course, it's not going to tell the whole story. So start telling me some of those facets.
But all of those facets are mainly, it's been about feminism. It's been about women, the divine feminine. A lot of it is dealt with the divine feminine, because I felt so bereft growing up in a church where it was just all men. You know, it was, we prayed to a male God, we prayed to Jesus or God, and there was I didn't have the feminine, and I, you know, and that was the story of my own life. You know, Walter was very, you know, he kind of ruled the nest, and Verna didn't really have a voice, she didn't know how to find her voice, and they really weren't empowering each other. There was not equality in the marriage. So I guess it's been about really trying to heal that for me too, because I lived that inequality, and I lived those things. So I've tried to create for myself in different pieces the divine feminine, and really kind of hold up those things and make them for myself, because it's what I've needed. That I've needed to do some of those.
Well, could you say that is one of the primary themes in your art? What you just said, the divine feminine?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you this: what is different between the divine feminine and the divine masculine? How would you characterize each one?
Ultimately, there wouldn't be a difference. You know, ultimately, there really wouldn't.
But you believe there's a difference. I mean, you talk about the divine feminine, you don't just talk about the divine. So what's the difference between the divine feminine and the divine masculine?
Well, I always put myself in a catch-22 there, because you come down to what the feminists call the essentialism, where women, you know, just started making a lot of work in the 70s just simply around the body. You know, we're going to focus on the yoni or the vagina. That's something that's specifically ours. Men don't have one of those. And you kind of fall into a weird trap with that, where it just becomes about the body, and then that is a place where you don't want to go to, because you just don't want to be focusing on yourself as being a big vagina. So I know that they're just, I don't know what's the difference between men and women. It's like the Venn diagrams. They do a lot of intersection, but they've got areas that are unique to themselves. I don't even know how to answer that question. I mean,
let's go back to autobiography. What's divine about you?
Everything. And I think we as human beings forget that, and you know, we truly are divine. We're divine people. You know, if we're kind of in that state where we can kind of try to be centered more often, and being around other people and getting advice and centering ourselves in, we can tap into that a lot more, maybe through prayer or just a good laugh or being with people or trying to make good choices that are win-win choices. That's kind of when we're in the divine. But I think we are such an amazing race of people, and we really have this capacity to do wonderful things, and we're squandering a lot of it. We're doing wars and we're doing stuff like that, and I believe that I'm divine and just as divine as anyone else. We really have this, I don't even know what word besides divine, just the capacity to make compassionate decisions.
Let me get down to specifics, just sticking with that line of questioning. What actions have you done that were divine? I think when I'm just kind of in my best self, when I'm taking myself into consideration and I'm taking other people into consideration. You love to talk in generalities.
Well, what have I done that's divine? I think trusting to get married was a big leap for me. It's a big leap. I didn't think I'd ever get married, and I didn't even want to, and I didn't think it would work. Mom had 2 failed marriages, and really, really working with Carl has been so healing. That's one of the big ones. Just letting myself be part of a marriage and giving and taking. It's been really huge for me. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I'd never felt that feeling before. I felt like somebody was there for me. And Carl and I bet that, I watch his back, he watches my back. We really feel good about it. Such an odd question. I don't really think about what I do that's divine.
I'm sure you do other things.
Huh?
I'm sure you do other things.
Oh, yes, I'm sure I have too,
What else have you done that's divine?
I don't do it very often, and I don't do it very well, but when I'm vulnerable with people, which is hard for me. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry or to say I was wrong. It's hard not to. I'm such a good grudge keeper. Oh my God, I'm like the queen of the grudges. And when I can let go of some of that stuff, that's good. It's real hard for me now. But
Well, let me ask you. You say that it's very hard for you to say you're sorry, and that it's something you don't do very often. If you had the opportunity right now to say you're sorry to somebody, who would it be?
I think you.
Why is that?
I think, I get really competitive. I get really competitive with you. And we push each other's buttons. And I'm just really aware I'm really aware, Gregson, when you got married, you took on this mantle of being the patriarch in the family. And you stepped into this space that I've never seen before. You are very responsible. You're more compassionate. You're more understanding. You give more. And it's been really humbling. I'm like, it's hard to see. I go.
When you say Mary, you're talking to Melina.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like you're this dad now. And it's changed you completely. And I think sometimes you've been the bigger person between the two of me. I think sometimes I've been the bigger person, but sometimes I get embarrassed. I think, Gregson's he's being bigger right now. He's being more generous, and I always haven't been a good sister. That's one thing I'm like. I don't know. What was the question again? Who would I say I was sorry
if you
to?
wanted to say you were sorry to somebody, who would it be? By the way, I didn't expect that answer, but thank you.
Yeah. Well, you're always kind of mucking up and messing up. So everybody I know would probably get a little like, I'm sorry, I was being a real jackass there, Another person that and I, sometimes relationships just come and go, but it was really hard. Beth Matway and Rayanne from our Covenant group. I kind of had a falling out with the two of them, and I couldn't be vulnerable. I just didn't, or when I was, I felt like wasn't accepted. It was, and I just kind of had to all let it go. So, and it's turned out okay. I can't really figure it out, but I just feel sorry about that. I can be really overly bitchy sometimes. I can be like, her mother called me. I forget. Like I'm crapping my brains out on the toilet the other day, and she goes, "Oh yes, a washcloth for the witch or something."
No, I'll tell you what she was talking about is one of the doctors asked if you were a fighter, and my mom goes, "Oh yeah, she's a fighter. She's definitely a fighter."
She's a fighter and a bitch. Yeah.
There's something I want to ask you. This is getting to the past. Tell me about your dog, Ginger.
Well,
and I do say your dog. The dog was originally bought for me, but within probably weeks became your dog and always was your dog. So tell me about your dog, Ginger.
Well, Ginger was... Kevin, I even hate for you to hear any of this because I don't know if you're going to get a dog or not, or if that's going to happen. But Ginger was just profound in my life.
That's why I bring her up, because she was.
She really was. She was just a really good friend for me. We didn't have many people on the block to play, but then there was Cindy Pfeiffer and Judy Mom. But the dog was always there for me, and I just, I loved the dog. The dog loved me, and we'd sit and talk. We'd lay on the linoleum, and I'd pet her fur, and we'd moan to each other. We'd go, we'd talk.
I remember that.
Yes, the dog talk I did.
I actually think it was lower pitched than that.
I don't know.
You guys would talk to each other.
Oh, we would. We would
for
talk
a long time.
For a long time. I would talk, and the dog would talk back, and we just kind of like whine and moan at each other. And I'd pet her fur, and she. So. She was just a huge part of my life. She was with me all the time, going walks, and I cut her hair and fed her, and.
Well, the thing is, you used to do what you called dog talk.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh my! Calvin, you gotta hear this. I would run around and I would throw my arms into the dog and I'd go, "Oh, Shannon dog, oh, and I just had this whole other speech about the dog, kind of this silly baby fun. We call it dog talk. And then my girlfriends at school would do it. So I'd go, "Oh, Shanner dog," and they'd go, "Oh, Shanner dog." I don't even know what a Shanner dog is.
Nobody did.
Nobody did. And in anger was like a takeoff on Ginger, and I'd go, "Oh, Shanner dog, Winger." And this would get the dog whipped into a frenzy, and she'd be bouncing around. But, I had all my girlfriends at school. And the thing was, you'd throw your arms high in the air and kind of go, "Winger."
I remember well.
Yeah, everyone.
You did that a lot.
I did. Then it always pissed me off because Walter would tell me how inappropriate this was, and he would say I was never going to get a job growing up if I did dog talk, that no one would take me seriously, which just
I'm just guessing you probably never did it at work.
I have not O-winged at work. But you know what? If I did O-wing her at work, I think it would go over very well. I think
it would.
People enjoy sounding. Dad, Carl and I do tons of sounding. All this sounding we do.
I don't know what sounding is.
We just make noises at each other.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of pet talk and everything.
Uh-huh. You know, I was actually thinking, just when you talk about sounding and things like that, well, I'm not going to disagree with it at all. You know, I mean, I think what you're saying is it brings life to a situation.
It does.
And
it's silly and alive and joyful. It's joy.
Well, here's something that sort of, I think, characterizes you. Because I was thinking, you know, what's sort of the essence of Cydra? And actually, I'll tell you who it's somewhat similar to is Julie. I think, to some degree, you guys share an essence. And here's what I mean. I had been asked by the church to do a little tiny play to tell one of the Bible stories. And the Bible story was the story of David dancing in front of the ark. And so I actually built an ark. And I had all these people that were going to sing and dance with the ark. And so we had this practice on how to do it. And it was so dead. I mean, I couldn't get any energy into it. And so, you know, we had people carrying the ark along and everyone's there. Hallelujah, hallelujah. It was just, there was nothing. And so then you had offered to help out with this. So you showed up to the practice and you start throwing your hands up in the air and dancing and clapping your hands. And every single person in the room became better. And I mean, you had made every single person in that room better at what they were doing.
Thanks.
And you know, and just the whole room was full of life. And I thought, that is Cydra. That's sort of your essence.
I am joyful too. You know, I think that's why I mentioned that about Kevin. He's got that. You know, you said, what are the most important things about him that I like the most? And it's that joy.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, like I've seen this many times that, you know, I'll be with a group of people, like a family gathering or a group of people, and the conversation's just not going anywhere. And seriously, you walk into the room and suddenly everybody's talking, the conversation picks up, and like you bring life into a room.
I do.
And you're not aware of it, I'll bet, because you don't see what it's like when you're not there.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. That can be very fun.
And so I just brought that up because you were talking about sounding, and that, you know, you said if you did your dog talk at work, it would be a good thing. And
it probably would.
Oh, that would bring life to that job.
It would. Everybody would get such a kick out of it, you know? Yeah.
And so for a while you were an actor, and, you know, you were living that life.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have been in musical theater, just jumping around and joyfully singing. Oh!
Well, now the funny thing is, you were in musical theater for a while, and I remember specifically one of the songs you sang, which I will never let you forget.
Right.
Oh, I'm a dog, woof, a real dog, woof. I'm in the manger, in the hay.
If they don't like it,
I mean the hay. Well, neither can they.
Yes, I can't have it.
It made an impression on both of us.
Oh my
You don't
gosh.
forget something like that.
Oh, it was great. I had this black dog costume, and then we'd taken this rather phallic black-looking sock and stuffed it with other stuff, and pinned that to my bottom. And I'd be doing the song, and halfway through, I'd turn around and I'd shake my little dog rear, and my little tail would just go flipping, and all the kids in the auditorium would go, "Oh!" It was so funny to see the dog, you know, out there flipping her tail.
Yeah, they were rather form-fitting black leotards.
Oh, they
wearing,
were.
and
Yeah, I was.
You were afraid that there was a certain sexual content to all of this that was coming across to the audience.
The line was, "If I can't have it, I mean the hay. Well then, neither can they." It was like, do we really need to explain that it was the hay we're discussing? You know? If they can't have it, oh, I mean the hay. Yeah, it was a wild time.
I'll tell you what, let me just look at the time here.